revealed, the incredible child who turned laughter into a life-changing triumph for a millionaire. Max was a bubbly 10-year-old, bursting with laughter, and the kind of joy that could light up even the darkest corners of a room. His cozy suburban Chicago home was filled with echoes of giggles, a legacy left behind by his late father, a stand-up comedian whose biggest star was his own son. Max remembered those nights spent together, laughter dancing through the air, his father's warm smile radiating love and encouragement. But now, the only laughter in the house came from the flickering memories, and Max wanted to bring it back. His mother worked tirelessly at the local diner, serving up pancakes and coffee. She wore her strength like a badge, a testament to the uphill battles they fought together. She taught Max resilience, and he admired her unwavering spirit as she juggled bills and meals with a fierce smile. "Someday, when I'm a famous comedian," Max declared while setting up his lemonade stand, "I'll make sure you never have to work again." One bright summer day, while pouring lemonade into a cup, Max noticed a mansion at the end of the block, a stark contrast to the homes in the neighborhood. His fingers tingled with curiosity. He cautiously approached, driven by the innocent wonder of a child. Sitting on the porch was David Thompson, a grieving millionaire who seemed to be trapped within his own sorrow. Despair clung to him like an old coat, and when Max sauntered over, the frown on David's face deepened. The two worlds of laughter and loneliness collided in that instant. With a goofy grin, Max launched into his best one-liners, pulling David out of his shell of grief, even if just a little. "Why did the tomato turn red?" he asked with a twinkle in his eye. "Because it saw the salad dressing." David chuckled, a sound so rare that it felt like music. Slowly the walls he'd built up began to crumble, brick by brick, as Max filled the emptiness of the mansion with the light-hearted banter that had become second nature. Their friendship blossomed, opening David's heart to the warmth of connection and community, and Max realized he was not just chasing a dream. He was living it. As summer days faded into the hues of fall, the looming charity event revived David's internal conflict. It was time to give back, something that seemed to weigh heavier with each passing day. When a misunderstanding erupted between him and Max, words spoken in haste threatened their friendship. David found himself wrestling with loss once more. Max, heartbroken at the thought of losing his friend, was left stuck in the middle of hopelessness and determination. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the community talent show approached, a chance for Max to finally showcase his comedy, David faced a turning point. Could he shed the past that shackled him and embrace a newfound connection? The stakes had never been higher, and the air crackled with anticipation. Would laughter bridge the gap between their worlds, or would unforeseen obstacles shatter their dreams forever? The final act awaited them both, and the resolution remained just out of grasp. Days flowed into one another as the talent show neared, and excitement hung thick in the air like the smell of popcorn at a carnival. Max brimmed with hope, but a nagging worry danced in his mind. His friendship with David felt fragile, like a soap bubble that could pop with just the slightest poke. Max practiced in front of his mirror, his reflection a face full of determination. He worked on material that echoed his father's spirit, jokes laced with heartwarming charm. "Did you hear about the claustrophobic astronaut?" He tossed to his own reflection. "He just needed a little space." A giggle escaped him, but then he caught sight of something beyond his mirrored self. The empty room behind him, the echoes of laughter haunting him yet again. Meanwhile, David wandered through the mansion, shuffling from room to room. He couldn't shake the feeling of isolation, even with Max brightening his days. Every corner of the house was draped in memories, reminders of the joy he once had, now dulled by grief. The looming charity event offered a flicker of purpose, yet uncertainty gnawed at him. Could he really face a crowd again? Could he embrace the laughter Max so desperately wanted to share? The day before the talent show, the autumn sun painted the sky in warm hues, but something inside David felt cold. After a long day of avoiding thoughts of the event, he decided to take a walk. The streets were alive with neighbors prepping for the show, a buzz of excitement cloaked in an undercurrent of nervous energy. As he meandered past the community center, he heard laughter. It was raucous and genuine, a sound he couldn't ignore. Intrigued, he took a few more steps, rounding the corner to a group of kids rehearsing for the talent show. And there was Max, in the middle, performing his routine with gusto. Children were howling with joy, their carefree laughter washing over David. Max delivered punchline after punchline, his face lighting up with each giggle that resonated through the air. It was then that David felt a shift, a deep longing to join in the celebration, to break free from the chains of his sorrow even for a moment. But a wave of self-doubt crashed over him. How could he stand in front of a crowd like that? Could he really bring laughter into the world again? Max caught a glimpse of David standing at the edge of the gathering. Their eyes met, and just for a heartbeat, it felt as if all the misunderstandings faded away. "Come on, you should join me," Max shouted, beckoning him with a wide grin. The kids turned, their faces brimming with excitement at the idea of David performing. David hesitated, his heart racing, caught between the comfort of retreating back into his solitary world and the pull of stepping into the light with Max. The laughter wrapped around him, yet the shadows whispered doubt. Why not? He thought. But fear anchored him like a weight. The camaraderie, the warmth. It was just a few steps away, yet felt just out of reach. With the talent show looming large, would David find the courage to embrace joy again? And could he and Max mend what had broken between them before the curtain rose? The answer seemed like a tantalizing mystery, pulsing with possibilities just waiting to be unveiled. The air crackled with possibilities as Max's smile grew wider, urging David to come closer. It was a moment frozen in time, a soft nudge against the resistance pulling him back. David felt the warmth of laughter enveloping him, so close, yet so distant. Could he really step into Max's world? "Come on, it's just us." Max's voice cut through his uncertainty like a beacon. The kids were still giggling, their faces a canvas of hopefulness, and David could see they believed in magic, the kind of magic he seemed to have lost. With an unsteady breath, David took a step forward, then another. His heart raced. Each footfall felt like a leap across an abyss of fear. The crowd of children turned, anticipation lighting their faces. They didn't see him as a grieving millionaire. To them, he was just David, the man who had once sparkled with joy, who had once been vibrant and alive. "What are you waiting for?" a kid shouted, breaking through his reverie. David's throat tightened. Suddenly, he found himself in a whirlpool of disbelief. Could he do this? The memories of stand-up routines at family gatherings swirled in his mind, the laughter echoing like a familiar song. But that was before. What if he faltered? What if the crowd drew back, disappointed? Max's eyes shone with unwavering faith. "You got this, David. Just one joke." David hesitated. Was he ready for that? There was still a hurricane of emotion inside him, yet something began to stir, an ember of the joy he once had. What if he let it out? What if it burst free? He walked into the circle, feeling the weight of every gaze on him. It was overwhelming, yet thrilling. The laughter around him ballooned, filling up the spaces of his heart that had felt so devoid for far too long. He cleared his throat. The sound echoed like a signal, and he felt the air shift, like the crowd was holding its breath. Okay. Here goes nothing," he shouted, more confident than he felt. The kids erupted into enthusiastic cheers. "What did one wall say to the other wall?" he asked, channeling some old rhythm he thought he had lost. He could see Max's nod of encouragement. "I'll meet you at the corner." For a heartbeat, silence fell around him before it erupted. Laughter spilled over, infectious and pure. David felt it resonate through his very bones. It was freeing, like sunlight breaking through a cloudy sky. Each chuckle lightened the load on his heart. Max beamed with pride as he watched David rediscover himself in the laughter, pulling at threads of connection both new and old. They met each other's gaze, and in that moment, a bridge began to form between their hearts again. Encouraged, David continued, adding a few more jokes, each one landing better than the last. The laughter of the kids swirled around him, filling the empty corners of his spirit with warm memories of joy, reminding him of what he loved about life. He felt alive again, like he was awakening from a long slumber. Perhaps he wasn't as lost as he had thought. When he finally finished, the applause soared, wild and contagious. David looked out at the young faces, their eyes sparkling with adoration. "See? You've still got it." Max cheered, rushing to David, who was overwhelmed with disbelief and a bittersweet kind of joy. As David felt the cheers wash over him, a weight lifted, but a flicker of concern lingered. Would this moment last? What would happen at the talent show? Would it all slip through his fingers again? Just then, the announcement for the talent show echoed through the streets, stirring the crowd into a frenzy of excitement. David's stomach knotted with a mix of dread and anticipation. Could he truly embrace this new chance? And what if it didn't go well? The allure of laughter was pulling him, yet the haunting shadows loomed large. With the talent show looming, would David muster the strength to face it all again? Would the laughter turn to light, or would it fade back into the shadows? David stood amidst the storm of applause, the rush of joy electrifying him. But even as he reveled in the moment, uncertainty danced at the edges of his mind. The talent show was coming, and a knot of fear twisted deep within him. Could he really capture the magic again? Max's grip on his shoulder felt like a lifeline. "You're going to kill it," he exclaimed, his excitement unbridled. The other kids buzzed around them, their laughter a vibrant symphony. But there was a truth David couldn't ignore. This time was different. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about them, too. "What if I fall flat?" David's voice cracked, the weight of potential failure looming over him like a dark cloud. The laughter he had just ignited felt like a flickering flame he was terrified to extinguish. "You won't. You just made everyone laugh," Max replied, determination in his gaze. "You've got it in you. Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about being real. But what if being real isn't good enough?" David's heart raced again, uncertainty gripping it. Would his truth resonate with the audience, or would they simply see a man lost in his past? Max frowned, his innocence shining through. "Don't you get it? They don't care if you're perfect. They care about you. Just be yourself, and the laughter will come." David took a deep breath, searching for the courage within. He thought back to the joyous laughter, the happiness flooding into him. The shadows lurking in his heart had begun to lift, giving way to a spark. Was that hope? As he looked at the eager faces around him, filled with anticipation, he realized that these kids believed in him. They saw a spark where he saw a fire smoldering. The atmosphere was charged, the energy palpable as the crowd grew more restless with excitement. David could feel their anticipation rising. "Okay," he said, a tremor of resolve threading through his voice. "I'll try. Just wish me luck." Max capered away, announcing David's decision to the crowd like it was the best news ever. The kids cheered, excitement bubbling around him again like a warm embrace. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, David stepped away from the group for a moment to collect his thoughts. He leaned against a lamppost, the laughter drifting toward him like a soft breeze. The glow of the setting sun shone on his face, stirring emotions he thought he had buried long ago. What if he didn't perform? The thought flickered through his mind. The talent show was looming like a mountain, and he was standing at the base, feeling smaller than ever. Yet, somewhere beneath the fear, the anticipation surged anew. He craved to share the laughter, to reconnect with the warmth of joy. The thought of standing before that crowd igniting smiles filled him with both dread and thrilling excitement. What if this chance was everything he needed to heal, not only for himself but for those around him? As the sun dipped below the horizon, crystallizing the moment into something unforgettable, David returned to the lively scene. The laughter echoed brighter than before, drawing him back. "I'm gonna do it," he declared, his voice steadier now, fueled by the support surrounding him. "I'm going to seize this chance." Max's eyes sparkled with glee, and David felt a wave of warmth wash over him. But even as he stepped toward the stage that stood silhouetted against the twilight, the nagging whisper of doubt clawed at him. Would his choice to expose himself to the world lead to joy or heartbreak? As he climbed up, adrenaline coursing through his veins, an echo in his mind warned him that the path to laughter could also lead to pain. With his heart pounding, he took center stage, the spotlight illuminating him, a small, luminous figure against the growing dark. As the crowd roared and the anticipation thickened, David's spirit soared, but the haunting question lingered. Would he conquer the stage, or face an unthinkable defeat? The spotlight felt like a warm blanket, cocooning David in an embrace he had never known. The noise of the crowd melted into a distant hum as he took a deep breath, preparing himself for the moment he so desperately needed. His eyes scanned the sea of faces, some familiar, some strangers, all waiting for him to breathe life into their anticipation. A hint of anxiety clutched at his chest, but he shook it off. The laughter he'd sparked before was still fresh in his mind, a lifeline pulling him forward. "Just be yourself," he whispered to himself, the mantra echoing in his heart. "Hey, everyone!" His voice rang out, surprisingly steady despite the noise in his head. A ripple of cheers followed, and for a brief moment, he felt like a king on his throne. Taking a step closer to the edge of the stage, he allowed himself a smile. He launched into his set, diving into an array of jokes and anecdotes that danced on the line of childhood innocence. References to school lunches, awkward crushes, and misadventures in gym class flowed effortlessly. Each punchline landed with precision, drawing laughter from the audience like moths to a flame. But then, something unexpected happened. One of the kids in the front row, a girl with curly hair and bright eyes, let out a giggle that seemed different, more genuine, more human. It was not just laughter, it was connection. David locked eyes with her, and suddenly the crowd turned from a sea of strangers into a community, bound together by shared experiences. Riding that wave of warmth, he took a chance and opened up. "You know what? There was a time when I thought being funny was all about the joke. But then I realized it's really about sharing a little piece of ourselves. Isn't that what laughter is? A bridge that connects us?" A stillness fell over them, an unexpected pause before he continued. "We all have our own fears, don't we? Like that feeling of waiting for the big moment and hoping we won't mess it up. It's terrifying." David's gaze softened. He could see himself reflected in them. The nerves. The hope. He wasn't just performing. He was sharing his heart laid bare before them. A loud cheer broke the silence, and he noticed Max jumping up and down, eyes alight with pride. That small acknowledgement fueled him further. He felt lighter, like he was floating in the buoyancy of their shared spirit. As his routine drew nearer to the end, David delivered the final punchline. "And remember, folks, it doesn't matter if you fall flat, as long as you laugh when you get back up. We're all just stumbling comedians on the stage of life, right?" The crowd erupted. It felt like an explosion of joy, an affirmation that resonated deep within him. Time seemed to stop, and for those few moments, all doubts evaporated. In that fleeting second, he saw it. Pure happiness spilling over faces, glistening eyes that reflected something deeper than just amusement. Maybe laughter could indeed mend broken spirits. Maybe it could help heal his own. As David stepped back, bowing with all the gratitude he held in his heart, he was met with a standing ovation. Adrenaline surged through him. This was more than just acceptance. It felt like a calling. Then it hit him like a sudden wave. What came next? Would he keep pursuing this new discovery of connection? Would he dare to dig deeper into the power of laughter? Maybe even share his journey with more than just a school stage? The questions danced in his mind as he left the stage, still reverberating with energy while Max rushed over, beaming with pride. But in that moment of triumph, a new challenge loomed. Could he turn this spark into a blaze that could warm the world? David's heart raced again, not with fear, but with exhilarating possibility as he looked towards the horizon. What awaited him? David stepped off the stage, the echo of applause still ringing in his ears. Max engulfed him in a hug, lifting him off his feet momentarily. "You were amazing!" Max shouted, his excitement a palpable force. There was a fire in David's chest that felt different from anything he had ever experienced. This was more than just a performance. It was a revelation. As they made their way through the cluster of congratulatory friends and parents, he noticed the girl with curly hair from the front row. She had formed a little circle with her friends, their faces flushed with joy. She caught David's eye again, and her grin spread wide. It was like a light bulb flicking on for him. It wasn't just about cracking jokes. It was about creating little sparks of magic that connected them all. "Hey, can I take a picture with you?" she called out, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. David nodded, suddenly feeling a rush of warmth blossom in his chest. They gathered together, beaming as the camera clicked. He felt appreciated, seen, and for a moment, he was just a part of a bigger moment filled with hope and shared happiness. After the crowd began to thin, David found a quiet corner away from the noise, clutching his phone. In the aftermath of the applause and cheers, he found himself scrolling through social media, where videos of his act were already surfacing. Most of the comments were supportive, full of love and laughter. But tucked among the compliments was a comment that struck him. "It's nice to see a kid so happy. But what happens when the laughter fades?" The words hung over him like a storm cloud, and for a brief moment, doubt began to creep in. What if this was just a fleeting moment? What if the laughter did fade? "Hey!" Max's voice broke through his thoughts. "You okay? You look like you've just seen a ghost." David sighed, the joy beginning to ebb away. "Just thinking, what if this is it? What if it doesn't last?" Max frowned, crossing his arms. "You're not looking at the bigger picture. You just inspired so many people. That girl, the crowd. They loved you. You gave them something real." David pondered Max's words. Maybe he could offer more than a few jokes. What if he used this moment to dive deeper, sharing his own fears, experiences, and maybe even venturing beyond the school stage? "Max, what if I wanted to try more? Like open mic nights or social media skits?" David blurted out. As the thought took shape, his heart beat faster. What if he could transform this spark into something larger? A chance to explore the stories behind the laughter, perhaps even write about them or connect with others going through tough times. "Dude, that would be amazing! Imagine, David the comedian, bringing smiles to more people." Max cheered, his enthusiasm contagious. But as he stood there, excitement battling doubt, another thought pulled at him. Were his stories really worth sharing? Did he have the courage to bare his soul to people who might not be as kind as the ones in the audience? "And what if I fail?" David muttered, a knot tightening in his stomach. Max shook his head. "But what if you soar? You've got something special, man. You can't let fear stop you from trying. As they walked back to the front where the festivities were still buzzing, David weighed his friend's words against the swirling uncertainty. Could laughter become a way to connect hearts, to uplift spirits, and to unearth truths that lay hidden behind smiles? Suddenly, his breath caught in his throat. It felt like a shift was coming, one that could signal the start of something profound. But was he ready to leap into that unknown territory? With determination rising inside him, David glanced back at Max. Let's do it. I want to take a chance. But even as he said it, a nagging voice whispered, what if he couldn't do it? What if this journey led to something he never anticipated? The excitement filled him again, but so did the fear. And as they stepped into the vibrant buzz of laughter and chatter around them, David couldn't shake the feeling that a thrilling challenge awaited him just beyond the horizon. Little did he know that his path would soon intersect with someone who would change everything. The following week was a whirlwind for David. The stage of that small school auditorium had ignited a fire in him, but now it felt like his life was about to catch flame. He and Max had spent hours brainstorming ideas for open mic nights, skits, and even a YouTube channel dedicated to comedy. They were stalking local cafes and clubs that advertised open mic events, mapping out their weekend plans with all the fervor of scouts on a treasure hunt. But with each passing day, the nagging doubt still lurked in the corners of David's mind, refusing to stay silent. As he stood in front of the bathroom mirror one evening, rehearsing his next set, the reflection staring back at him seemed uncertain, almost a stranger. What if I can't do this? He whispered to himself, smoothing down his hair. What if no one laughs? Hey, champ! It was his mom, poking her head in, a smile plastered on her face. You ready for your big debut? Her excitement felt overwhelming at that moment, like too much light in a room that he desperately wanted to stay dim. Yeah, sure, he replied half-heartedly. Come on, you've got this. You've already made everyone laugh once. You can do it again, she encouraged, and her infectious belief stirred something in him. He forced a smile. I'm not sure the same magic will happen twice, he said, a frown creasing his forehead. David, listen. Every star shines brighter after the darkness. She stepped into the room, putting a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Even if you stumble, you'll get right back up. Just be yourself. That's enough. As the weekend arrived, the boys arrived at the cafe, a local hotspot filled with young families and avid coffee drinkers. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation as performers took turns at the mic, some exhibiting raw talent and others giving it a humorous spin. With each act, David felt his own nerves swell as excitement gripped his stomach like a vice. Then it was his turn. He climbed onto the stage, the spotlight warm on his skin. David looked out over the sea of faces, some familiar, some strangers. The stage felt more daunting than it had during his school performance, but he couldn't back down now. Hey, everyone, he chirped, trying to match the energy of the crowd. I'm David. Some of you might know me as the awkward kid who can't dance. Laughter erupted, and he felt the swell of confidence begin to build. As he launched into his set, weaving stories from his childhood into his punchlines, he felt a connection forming, a fleeting bond with the audience. They were laughing, nodding, surprised even. But halfway through his act, he noticed her, the girl with curly hair sitting in the front row, her eyes wide with admiration. The warmth in David's chest blossomed once more. He could do this. But then the nagging doubt returned, life's storm cloud hovering dangerously over his performance. What if this is just one night? What if nobody remembers me after this? The thoughts rushed through him like a whirlwind, threatening to knock him off balance. In that moment of vulnerability, something inside of him clicked. He paused, took a breath, and said, You know, I get nervous about sharing my stories. I mean, my life is just an ongoing sitcom of awkward encounters. He felt the crowd resonate with him, their murmurs of laughter turning into genuine interest. I thought laughter would just fade, but then I realized it's not just about me. It's about you all too. We're all in this together. His heart raced. Whether he succeeded or stumbled, he'd already laid part of his soul bare. As he wrapped up, cutting through the tension with a punchline that landed perfectly, applause erupted like a wave crashing against the shore. David stepped off the stage, his spirit filled with an electric thrill. He couldn't believe it. He had done it. Max was waiting for him, his beaming smile infectious. "You were incredible, man. What did I tell you?" David laughed, feeling lighter than air. But just as he basked in the afterglow, a figure approached them. A tall man with an unmistakable presence, an air of confidence about him that felt almost larger than life. The man leaned in, extending his hand with a grin. "That was exceptional, kid. Ever thought about taking it bigger?" David's heart pounded in his chest. What could this mean? Was his chance really coming? But was he ready to seize it? David stood there, the weight of the man's words crashing over him like a symphony of thunder. He managed to maintain eye contact, but inside, his mind was spiraling. A million questions raced through him. Who was this guy? How could he think David was anything special? The man introduced himself as Tony, a local talent scout who had a knack for spotting potential. "I run a night show at the downtown comedy club," he explained, his voice rhythmic and confident. "We're always on the lookout for fresh talent. You've got something, kid. I'd like to give you a shot." As those words sank in, David felt like he was suddenly caught in the whirlwind again. A shot? At a real comedy club? His heart hammered in his chest. This was what he had dreamed about, yet the pressure of reality began to creep in. "What do you say?" Tony asked, his smile encouraging but his eyes searching. David glanced at Max, who wore a look of disbelief mixed with uncontainable excitement. The high from his earlier performance still buzzed through David, but this, the weight of the new opportunity, sent a chill up his spine. Could he really do this? What if he stumbled? Yeah, David stammered, trying to sound cool. "I mean, I'd love to, but—" "No buts," Tony interrupted with a laugh, clapping David on the shoulder. "Just think about it, all right? I believe in you." As the man walked away, David's mind swirled. Max jumped in. "Dude, this is massive. We have to do it. You could be the next big thing." David wanted to believe it. The thought of performing on a bigger stage thrilled him, but doubt loomed overhead again. "And what if I bomb?" he wondered aloud, biting his lip. "You won't," Max exclaimed, his enthusiasm infectious. "You know how many comedians fail before they make it? This is just part of the process. You gotta take the risk." David smiled weakly, his heart at war with his head. He loved the laughter. He loved the thrill of sharing his stories. But the thought of facing a crowd that might not laugh? It terrified him. That night, he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from the cafe in vivid detail. The laughter, the applause, the feeling that had surged within him. He could almost feel the stage under his feet. But then came the shadow of fear, swirling in the corners of his mind, reminding him of failures, of people who had chased dreams but returned empty-handed. What if he was meant to be one of those people? David tossed and turned, battling between embracing the opportunity and the fear of facing the unknown. Finally, exhaustion took hold, and he drifted into a restless sleep, filled with dreams of bright lights and jarring silences. The next morning was greeted with a sun that felt different, a kind of warmth that nudged him. He downloaded a comedy app, knowing he needed to jot down material, but every time he tried, his mind clutched at straws. Nothing seemed worthy enough to share. Max called later that day. "Have you made a decision yet?" David hesitated, Maybe he just needed time. But as he looked out the window, he wondered what kind of person he would be if he let this chance slip away. Just when he thought he'd made up his mind, his phone buzzed. A message from Tony flashed on the screen. "Looking forward to your call. Let's make some magic." That was it. He felt a flicker of excitement and dread. What would he do? But deep down, a thought ignited within him. Even if laughter faded, could this be the spark that would light the path forward? As doubt began to fade, another sensation crept in. What if this was just the beginning? What would it mean to truly go after his dreams? Could David push through the fear, grab the opportunity, and find out what lay beyond? The choice lingered over him like an open door, waiting for him to take the first step. What would he choose? David stared at his phone, the screen glowing back at him as if it were teasing him to make a choice. He felt the urge to call Tony instantly, but his finger hovered over the call button, paralyzed by uncertainty. What was he truly afraid of? The possibility of failure? Or was it something deeper? His desire to step into a spotlight that might scorch him. He took a deep breath, trying to shake off the dread. The sunlight streamed through the window, bright and inviting, a reminder of the warmth that had nudged him just moments ago. What could happen if he said yes? Could he actually find joy in sharing his stories? In making people laugh? Max's voice burst through the phone once more. "Come on, man! Just imagine stepping onto that stage. All those faces lit up waiting for you to kill it. You're gonna crush it!" His excitement was infectious, but it also sparked a nervous energy within David. David walked over to his kitchen, filling a mug with coffee. He leaned against the counter, closing his eyes briefly. A wave of memories flooded his mind. Evenings spent with friends, laughter echoing around the room, sharing jokes that spun into animated stories. The thrill of making people laugh felt like home. And yet, standing on a stage, exposing himself to potentially deafening silence, felt like another world. "I'll do it," he exclaimed suddenly, startling himself. But even as he said it, the doubts crept back in. Could he handle the pressure? Setting his phone on the counter, David stared into the depths of the dark coffee, as if he could brew clarity from it. He remembered another encounter from that same cafe. An old man who had once told him that sometimes the biggest risk is not taking one. David replayed the man's smile in his mind, how his eyes crinkled when he talked about his own adventures. There was magic in vulnerability. David grabbed his phone and typed a brief message to Tony. "I'm in. Let's do this." With each word, he felt a weight lift. He pressed send before he could second-guess himself. Heart pounding, he practically leaped away from the counter, feeling exhilarated and terrified in equal measure. The reply came almost instantly, a cheerful thumbs-up emoji followed by, "Great, I'll pencil you in for this Friday night. Do you want a met to discuss material?" The moment felt surreal. Friday night. In just a few days he would be standing in front of a crowd, actual people with actual expectations. David could now visualize the approach of that moment, the chatter, the anticipation, and the thrill surging as he took center stage. His heart raced, but the idea of being on stage turned his nerves into fuel. This was his chance, not just to perform, but to break through the fears that had held him in place. Win or lose, this was about growth. Days passed in a blur of laughter, nervous pacing, and late-night writing sessions. Max was right there beside him, offering feedback on his bits and encouraging him when knowing the stakes weighed heavily. David shared moments of doubt, and Max assured him he was ready for this. Finally, it was Friday. The evening air was thick with excitement, laced with the scent of food from nearby restaurants. David arrived early, standing behind the club's entrance, peering at the crowd that started to gather. His heart thudded in his chest like a drum, and a sense of purpose washed over him. He had a unique story to tell, a voice that deserved to be heard. As the doors swung open, laughter spilled into the street like a melody, David took a deep breath, letting the sound wash over him. This was his moment. But before he knew it, every doubt, every voice of insecurity, began to bubble to the surface. Could he really command that laughter? Taking one last deep breath, David stepped inside, his pulse quickening as anticipation crackled in the air. He could feel the energy of the room pulling him in, and just as he reached the stage, a familiar face caught his attention. Tony, giving him a thumbs up from the side. But as he approached the mic, the room dimmed, and suddenly, silence enveloped him like an icy blanket. What if he failed? What if silence replaced laughter? David locked eyes with a random guy in the front row, his mind racing. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, one thought bubbled up. This was it, the moment he had waited for. He tapped the microphone, and the sound resonated right through him. "Hey everyone, what's the deal with—" But just as he began, a flicker of movement in the back caught his eye. A shadow, looking eerily familiar, watched him with an intent gaze. What could that person possibly want? David's heart raced as he squinted into the dim light, trying to see the figure in the back. It was a tall silhouette, almost like a ghost from his past. For a moment, he forgot he was on stage. The spotlight's warmth faded as doubts flooded over him. "Okay, focus," he whispered under his breath, shaking off the distraction. The audience, a sea of expectant faces, shifted in their seats, hope and curiosity burning in their eyes. This was his chance. The laughter they craved was waiting for him. "Hey everyone, what's the deal with—" He dove into his first joke, allowing the familiar rhythm of storytelling to guide him. The laughter followed like a comforting wave. Each punchline pulled David further into his flow, grounding him and pulling him away from his unease. But that shadow lingered in his peripheral vision, tugging at his attention. It was distracting, but with each funny line, he saw glimmers of support reflected in smiling faces. Max's encouraging nod, Tony's approving gesture, and he slowly began to forget about the figure behind him. Then a moment arrived. The weight of laughter grew heavier as David shared his fears. "You know, I dreamt about performing in front of a crowd like this, but it's terrifying realizing that everyone could hear me stumble and fall flat on my face. It's like going on a blind date with a group of strangers." The crowd erupted into laughter, and his heart soared. He continued, feeding off the energy, pouring his soul into stories of awkward childhood moments, shared experiences, and genuine connections. The audience was with him every step of the way. When he spoke of vulnerability, of the fears kept tucked away, the laughter transformed into something deeper, more significant. Yet, despite the cheers and claps, the shadow shifted again, and for a brief instant, David turned his gaze toward it. That familiar face materialized into clarity. His mother. There she stood, just outside the illuminated stage, her eyes shimmering with pride. In that moment, something clicked inside of him. The laughter, the stories, all became intertwined with the love and strength she had instilled within him. It was a reminder that this journey was about more than just performance. It was about connection, resilience, and reaching beyond fear. "Mom!" he exclaimed mid-joke, the excitement tinged with disbelief. The audience chuckled, sensing his surprise, and it fueled his confidence. "You're supposed to be at home. Did you get lost on your way?" "Nope. Saw your big moment and couldn't miss it," she yelled back brightly, laughter rippling through the crowd. David grinned, filled with warmth that melted down the remaining barriers of doubt. With that supportive presence, he regained his momentum. The weight of his past, his father's absence, the struggles of growing up, was lighter now. They were pieces of his story, shaping him into the man on stage that night. "I chose to take the leap, and this fear I carried with me? Turns out it's just a part of being alive," he declared passionately, feeding off every chuckle and cheer. "And you know what? Every time I stand in front of a crowd like this, I realized something. Laughter doesn't just fill spaces, it builds bridges. The applause swelled as he delivered his final punchline, wrapping the set with a heartfelt message. The audience resonated with his journey, and he felt their understanding wrap around him like an embrace. As he stepped off the stage, the whirlwind of cheers engulfed him. Max barreled in, lifting him into the air, shaking him with joy. "You killed it, man! That was legendary!" David laughed, a radiant smile spreading across his face, pure delight washing over him. "I can't believe I found the courage." Tony appeared, clapping him on the back. "You were fantastic. The way you connected with the audience. That's what makes a star." The thrill of acceptance sent sparks of exhilaration through him. He knew in that moment that he had found more than just laughter. He had found his voice. As they all celebrated, David glanced back toward his mother, who was animatedly chatting with someone in the crowd. He felt a wave of gratitude for her unwavering support. Sure, the doubts would come again, but he had proven to himself that laughter was not just a tool, it was a means to heal, connect, and transform. From that night on, David embraced his journey into comedy fully. Open mic nights became more than just performances. They evolved into community gatherings, filled with stories shared between strangers, laughter exchanged, and bonds formed. He started documenting his experiences online, recording skits not just to entertain, but to uplift and remind others that they weren't alone. The shadows of self-doubt began to dissipate as the warmth of laughter blossomed. "Laughter is the best medicine," he often reminded those who came to see him. And together, they discovered that shared stories weren't just about humor. They were about illuminating the darkest corners of life, finding magic in vulnerability, and building connections that could change the world. In the end, it was about living fully, embracing both the laughter and the tears along the way. David had not just stepped onto a stage that night. He had stepped into a new chapter of life, one that would echo with joy and connection, resounding far beyond the stage, a legacy of laughter, resilience, and hope. And as David stood surrounded by the warmth of friendship, he realized that laughter would always be his greatest triumph. But here's the thing. This is just the beginning of David's journey. You need to subscribe now to be part of the incredible stories unfolding every week. Leave a like now to keep feeding the algorithm and bringing this joy to even more people. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about David's transformation. Your voice matters. And don't forget to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this inspiration. You've seen the power of connection. Now let's spread it far and wide. Don't wait, not even one more second to share.